All right, guys. We are back for part 3 of A Houston Calls' a collection of short stories album review. We've got the High School Never Ends pod guys on. We've also got Houston Calls' frontman, Tom Keiger, in the house. He's listening to us give reviews of each track on this debut album, and he's also sharing some insight.
Showered with praise.
And I'm staring each of them in the eyes so that they don't say anything negative. That's what's really happening.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm glad you made it back. I'm glad, after the comments I made at the end of the last episode, I didn't know if we were going to get to
Who is that? I put a Post-it note over part of my screen.
All right, guys, enough of that. Let's get into track number 8, which is Bottle of Red, Bottle of Spite. Steve, since you returned for part 3, why don't you go first?
I only returned out of spite. That's right.
I had a bottle of red earlier. Well, not a bottle, a glass, rather.
Jesus.
Get a refill. So
It's better in a box.
ton of energy in this
That's what
one. She said. Kudos, Tom. Did you name this track yourself, or was this a collaborate? Yeah, I mentioned Billy Joel on like 7 episodes ago when we were at a different song. Obviously, I'm a big Billy Joel fan, so the Bottle of Red, Bottle of Spite is fantastic. To me, it's the harmonies in the chorus. You guys have done this in this album, on the following album, but I love a good harmony, especially right around this, like mid 2000s. There's a handful of people that do good back and forth harmonies, and the ones that do it really well. And this one is one of those. I also enjoyed to me, it kind of sounded like the breakdown is like this 80s electronic kind of influence, which was, Chris mentioned something about 80s earlier. I'm not sure which track that was, but this one got a little bit of that to me. So another good track. Boom.
Yeah, I feel like this song probably doesn't get enough love because it's probably towards the bottom of the album. And I'm referring to, streaming numbers, that is. But this is another great song. Like Steve, the standout part for me is hands down the melodies being sung, mainly over the chorus. We've got 2 toms going at once, and it's just mixed and executed so well. And I think when you're singing the chorus, you're singing the interlude over the top of it, which I think is a great idea. Kind of weird that they would go together so well, but whose idea was that? Was that the band's? Was it the producers? Did you guys do that before going into the studio already? Because I remember you saying that when you went in to record a collection of short stories, that these songs were pretty much done. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
You remember that perfectly. I don't think there was anything honestly changed about these songs. Producer-wise. I think we just went in there, banged them out, and that was it. And it was a wildly different experience than the second album that you all talked about before, and kind of that setup. But I think, to be honest, Tyler, that I just couldn't land on which chorus we were going to use. We're like, I like these both these parts are cool. Let's just throw them both in there. Like, got these counter melodies going on. I think
really
that's
cool.
how it came out.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just a sucker for that kind of chorus where there's overlapping vocals and they're singing something differently. The high point of the song is really the chorus for me. And just throughout the whole record, you can tell there's an intent to make each verse different throughout the song. Like the verses, just like the strumming patterns are always different. The way they're sung are always different. Like there's no monotony to any of the songs in that way, which I think makes for a more enjoyable listen.
I 100% agree on the monotony part. Like there's nothing. Like for some reason, you guys are able to write songs that consistently just become those earworms you talked about before. Like you're able to write a tune that you want to continue to listen to. So this song continues that. I pick up on that 80s vibe that Steve said before. I don't know, maybe it's just in my head to kind of bend things to think I'm listening to 80s type music because, nostalgia or whatever. But man, I just love it. No matter what it is or how it was supposed to be perceived, whatever it is you're doing with that just kind of fits right up in my brain. So nice work there. But the long and short of it is that these guys said it all. The overlapping vocals. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never listened to this song, turn this one on, listen to what we're talking about because it's going to be something great. So big thumbs up on this one.
Yeah, it's definitely a special one for sure.
At the very least, the verse of these songs and the bridge, I feel like there's a time when you're a singer where you just feel really confident and good about the parts and how it works with your range and like your vocal delivery. And I think this is the song that I felt most confident in that delivery on like verse and bridge. Like it just, other parts I'd have to think about it more. There'd be a lot more effort. And then that part, I just thought, God, this is like how I wanted it. I always wanted it to sound and come across. Like it just felt like I was in that, that wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really happy with that. And there's plenty, I listen back and there's plenty of parts like any artist that just kind of thinks, God, that part sounds terrible. Like, I really don't like that part. I wish I did that differently, or I wish I did this.
Sure.
This song is one of like I'm talking about the verse and the bridge. The bridge is honestly my favorite part of any song we have in any, which is, it's not even like complicated or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just, I really like the way it hits, and I just really like the way it feels. And so this was a quick one. This was another one that Josh and I just went in, and the chorus, the guitar part, was actually strongly influenced by Anne Berlin. I don't know if you know that band.
Yep.
They had that album Never Take Friendship Personal. I believe that was the album it was called, with the statue on the cover, kind of cracked. The head was cracked in half, and we always wanted a song that had that choppy kind of guitar part in the chorus, that we're like, let's do it. So Josh and I just kind of went in there one day and played that, and I think that part is really cool, and I really like Rich's synth line at the beginning, which, when that swell comes in at the beginning, he plays this lick on the keys that is just really cool, and then I ended up playing a guitar part to kind of mirror it. I think that was the one thing that might have been an Ed Rose add-on as the producer. Now that I think about it, I don't think I was cool enough to come up with that. I think he said, why don't you kind of mimic the guitar, or mimic the keyboard line with the guitar? We'll kind of do riff off each other and sound pretty cool. And I ended up really liking that. So
that's
those
awesome.
Are still a couple nuggets for that song.
That's sweet. All right, let's move on to track number 9, A Line in the Sand. It's the second slow song on the album. The song stands out a bit more from the other tracks to me. I think it's because it kind of seems like the most maybe emo sounding song, if I try kind of comparing the emo scene around that time. I'd say lyrically and musically it falls in that realm, but maybe it's even slightly heavier than the other songs on the album. I absolutely love the fast guitar riff that happens before the pre-choruses. It's almost Tom DeLonge-esque, but still very on brand for Houston Calls, I think. It just sounds like there's a little bit of Blink influence on that riff alone, which, being around that time, Blink was the biggest band there was in the world, and a lot of pop punk bands at that time had Blink elements sprinkled throughout. I don't get that at all in any Houston Calls song, but I did pick it up here. So I don't know if there was Tom DeLonge influence on this track or not, but I feel like I hear it.
Like Anthem Part 1, yes, it's kind of
it's in there. Something's in there,
no doubt. I'm a huge Blink-182 fan and was at that time as well, so it very well could have been. But this is another track that was a Rich Okamoto original from start to finish.
Got you. Okay,
so we've got 3 on this album that are like his babies: High Rise, A Lie in the Sand, and Better Part of Valor. Those 3 songs, nice. Like he came in here. And so this one, actually, the cool thing about this one is that when we did that One More Won't Hurt demo with Bob Freeman, we did A Lie in the Sand at the same time, and it was a completely different, it was just like a pop punk song. There was no halftime, there was no nothing. It was just straightforward. It'd be funny to hear that one. You'd probably all be like, this is the same song. I mean, you could only tell based on the melodies, but the guitar is just completely different. And yeah, I do agree with that Tom DeLonge part, though. That does sound very familiar now.
Yeah, it's there.
Tyler, how funny would it have been if he was like, who's Tom DeLonge? I've never heard of that guy. I'll talk about this one a little bit. There's a super tame introduction. The intro, it's very melodic. You just kind of like feel like something's coming, and then like kind of towards the end of the first verse, it gets a little big. The look that I knew I despise. Then we go into the chorus. I actually wrote the word out. I wrote, this song is very emotional. I didn't go emo. I felt like it needed the whole word. Bunch of great lyrics in here, and then I guess I'll call it kind of like a post chorus. The whole like, it's not like you do this normally, not like you say that you're sorry. That part kind of felt a little different. I don't know if do you guys know the band Gratitude? Mm-hmm. That sounds a little bit like Gratitude. Just those 4 lines. But then when you guys do that the second time, there are these melodies, these harmonies that just bring it up. So there's a lot of really fun, cool, interesting things on this one that I liked.
I thought it was interesting too on this one, Tom, that, it seems like you had mentioned before about the choruses, and I don't want to say maybe not being a big fan of them, but just obviously more of a fan of the verse and so on and so forth. But with this one, it seemed like there was a lot of repeating of the chorus. Are you a fan of that? Do you feel like that worked here?
I like the verse better in this song too. I mean, it's got the palm muting part that I love. I think the chorus, I mean, it's got it's I think this is a nice departure from the normal style that we have in other songs. That's what I do appreciate about this one, listening back. You get a different vibe at the beginning. You get the chorus. It's just kind of almost like hits. Like it's just kind of banging through instead of just super straightforward. But I do prefer the verse in this one as well.
Yeah, and I kind of thought maybe you'd go that way. I mean, it's just one of those things that I wanted to bring up because the structure of the song and the way it was. But I agree. I like songs that are departures too. Like I always say that when going through these types of exercises and talking about bands that I like and think when they try and do different things. So that's my take too. Is I like that you guys tried something a little bit different here, and I think it hit well.
Yeah, this song has my favorite kind of line of prose in it, and it's actually in the chorus, the back half of the chorus. I'm about to live the life you thought we'd live together. I said you'd leave. You said you wouldn't. I guess I knew you better. I just always really love that line.
It flows nicely. Like
yeah.
The way, I
there's no shoehorning of like lyrics at all. It's just the really great flow. But yeah, for some reason that line always resonated with me. I don't know why.
And this was written about the old guitar player for that ska punk band who left the band. His name was Matt Parcell.
See, I always assume the song's about a girlfriend or boyfriend or something.
Yeah, sorry to crush
that kind of situation.
Anyone that relates to that, interpret
not anymore.
Well.
Nope.
I didn't say if they were dating or not. Rich could have been dating Matt.
That's true. That's true.
It's true. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions.
John mentions the flow of the lyrics, and I think this is kind of a good segue into track number 10, a pen and a piece of mind. And if you guys don't mind, I'll take this one first, because I think on this song, the flow of your lyrics with the melody is just, it's so on point. It's not even funny. Like, and I think this song showcases the Houston Calls flow of lyric melody. I think this song showcases that the best. For some reason, I've always thought that this line was the best. And I don't know why. It's so simple, but I've always loved the line. So I ask myself, is there more sides to the story? Just, I don't know. I've always thought that was so unique. It's always stood out to me. I have no idea why, but I love it. I think it's just so clever. And then the punchy melody surrounding it is absolutely perfect. I love how the song just makes you feel, like with that bopping noise. And the second verse is different than the first verse, but all of it together just goes so nicely. I guess it's just going back to what John and Chris were saying, that there's no monotony to this song at all. And I also think that that's what makes your guys' songs so great. It just makes you want to keep listening because there's so much differences throughout the, just one song. So this is one of the top tracks for me by far.
Here's a question for you, Tom. The fact that you hearken back to Sunrise Goodbyes in this track, was Sunrise Goodbyes already written prior to the song and you kind of were tying the two in, or was there no correlation and it just kind of worked out that way?
It was already written. It just, they're about the same person. And so, yeah, that was a reference to our own song, which I thought, that's bold, but let's just go for it.
Okay, so it was planned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's awesome.
So it was supposed to be a rock opera.
Yeah, something like
I've
that.
come to the conclusion.
That was the year American Idiot came out, right? I think ours came out a couple.
It just stole your thunder and just canceled the rock opera.
I think they were September 2005, maybe. Or was that 2004? I could be wrong.
I think it was 04 for American Idiot. Yeah,
you're probably right. Well, we had already written the songs too, so they got a hold of our demos.
You know, my only gripe about this song is that it's so far down on the album that I feel like it probably didn't get as much love as it should have. I just feel like this one is such a banger of a song. This one's so good.
It's another clever title too, because there's kind of a duality to peace of mind, like you're given a piece of your mind or to be at peace, you know.
Yeah, because it's
even though it's spelled P-I-E.
Yeah. It's P-I-E-C-E, so that's a play on words there.
Which seems to be the theme for Houston Calls.
Well,
Deception.
Tyler, you had brought up the so I asked myself, are there more sides to this story? I was going to ask Tom if he refers to himself as self, like on a day-to-day basis, and if he's okay, and if we need to talk to, some professional or anything like that. Is this a common thing, or?
It might have been at that time. I think I'm past that phase, but, back then.
It could get real awkward in the bedroom.
I also did think that was very clever, and it stood out to me. Love the call back to the first track. I feel like the synth in the beginning is one of those, those wavy, like, I'm calling it Motion City soundtrack, that kind of synth rather than the piano, which we're going to see on the next track. There is some guitar work in this second chorus that I found to be super fun. And just the lyrics themselves, like for somebody to paint a portrait and then tear it down, like that person must have done something unforgivable to that other person in order to, like, if you think about what goes into painting a portrait, putting it up on the wall, and then just tearing it down, like that's some strong stuff. And I get a lot of strong stuff out of this song. Listen, if there's 11 songs on the track, a song has to be at 10, right? I feel like the last one as well, A Line in the Sand, gets less love on the streams because maybe people don't listen to they stop somewhere and then they pick it back. I don't know what the answer is, but sometimes like the last song gets a lot of love, and then the one or two before it for some reason kind of miss out. But this one doesn't deserve that.
Agreed. So track number 11, the last track, The Better Part of Valor. Chris, you want to go?
I feel John hasn't gone first in a while.
Oh, John, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, this is another, I assume it's about a sort of kind of relationship song. That's right. The way I've always kind of felt about it. But I think I probably threw this song on some mixtapes, when you make a little mixtape for a lady that you're pining after. Or the baby,
Did it work?
Broke up with yours. No, of course not. But I think I threw this song on some mixtapes for those special ladies back in the day. Those lucky ladies.
It is another great song, and I guess it makes for a good closer of an album. I wouldn't say that this is the type of song that I would choose for a closing of an album, but what song would you choose on this album to be the closer? So I think I'm guessing it got pigeonholed, or not pigeonholed, but just got, just placed there because maybe you guys didn't know what else to do with it.
Last one in the bowl.
Yeah, something like that. But I will say that if you just let the album repeat after The Better Part of Valor, I think it really makes for a great continuation, like a full circle that just kind of keeps going. So I feel like after you've listened to the whole album and you get done with The Better Part of Valor, you want to just keep hearing more Houston Calls. I will say, though, and I think it's interesting that I don't know if you had anybody from Hidden in Plain View on this track. I know one of your members was originally in Hidden in Plain View, but I feel like I hear Hidden in Plain View vibes on the last chorus right as it's ending. Like maybe it was, he's not credited, but it actually sounds like the singer of Hidden in Plain View on the vocals. And I don't know if anybody was channeling that, if he was there, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's just, I don't know if you hear that, John, because I know you're familiar with Hidden in Plain View, but.
No, I don't ever recall having that thought, but.
I don't know. Just when I was hearing it last, I feel like I heard that. Tom, who is it? Kenny? Is it?
Yeah. He was the one. He was an original member of Hidden in Plain View. That's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't the singer, right?
No.
Okay.
No, Joe Rio was the singer.
Joe, that's right.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like Joe's on the track. I know that can't be true, though, right?
It's not true, but I mean, I feel like it's not that far-fetched of a thought just based on us growing up in the same scene, listening to the same music, having the same influences in our singing styles.
Yeah,
we were friends. You know, I mean, no doubt when you hear.
You could tell me that Joe was singing that last part, and I'd believe you.
Which are you talking about?
I'll have to see exactly where it's at, but I think it's towards the end.
Because there's a part where Rich is singing, so if there's a different vocalist, it's not me.
It's right around the 320 mark. I don't know if you have Spotify up.
Is it when there's dueling vocals going on?
And it almost sounds like a hidden in plain view like chorus or.
Like it could be that song Garden Statement that has that kind of build up.
Yes, exactly.
I think that might have, I don't know the exact part you're talking about, but there is a part at the end of the song where Rich is singing. So that, I bet that's what you're thinking of.
It has to be. John, you listen to it. I bet you'll agree with me for sure.
Yes, sir.
We were big Hidden in Plain View listeners back then.
Is it the line where it says it's just a postscript now wrapped in parentheses? That part? Yeah, he's singing that part. Yep.
Yeah.
That's Rich.
Man. It sounds like Hidden in Plain View. I like it. All right, who didn't go?
Steve.
Me. Okay, to me, this song is a lot of building. It's a lot of builds and drops, ups and downs. It starts kind of low. After a few bars, it gets much bigger. The chorus itself is belted out, very, very like anthemic. After the first chorus, it kind of goes back down. It calms down. Only a couple lines, and then it goes right back up. I really like. I don't say roller coaster in a bad way. I'm just saying like up and down, like a lot of different types of like tone, lots of tonality in here. I love the lyrics in, I guess, the last verse that ends up getting repeated over and over. That ends with all the softest sighs, all the lovers please. They're just a postscript now, wrapped in parentheses, because who doesn't like some grammar talk in their songs? I do. I like soliloquies. I like postscripts. I like parentheses or parenthesis, however you want to say it. And to me, yeah, this one has this like anthemic quality to me. I could see this as a chosen last song, because a lot of times the last song does have that chorus that's like, I keep saying the same freaking word over and over, so I don't want to just keep saying it. But again, I like the building and building, bringing it down, going back up. I feel like it's got a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, and I think that's important for a final song. And my only take here is that, you know, to wrap up it's asking me if I'm still here. That's crazy. I am still here. Yes. So
I thought you left.
To wrap up an album is challenging in a lot of ways, and so, you know, I really love to hear, you know, why this was the song you guys chose to wrap this album up. But from my perspective, you know, I think that Steve said a lot of what I was thinking, and, you know, you really want a song that is anthemic. I think an emotional tie, like a big emotional song, is to me a very good way to end an album. It leaves you with something. It leaves you something to think about. It leaves you something to feel when you're done with that whole journey from front to back. And this song does that. So the ups and downs, it all kind of leads to it. It keeps you on that emotional journey that all kind of lends to that. And I think to what Tyler said, to the credit of this album, the fact that you can just start it all over again and it kind of melts together. I always feel like some of my top tier albums are the ones that can do that. Less so much the ones that I kind of have to skip over the last three tracks on the album to get back to one, because I like it so much. And this album doesn't do that. It just kind of flows like butter. So I really like the way you guys ended this. But yeah, that's my question to you on that, Tom, is that just curious thought process behind this kind of being slotted into the final track.
I just think that the anthemic style of it just brings it to a nice close. It just felt like it resolved something, I suppose. I'm sure you could have gone with a couple other choices, no doubt about that, but I don't know. It's just the end of the song when you kind of have the build up and you're kind of we've got the dual vocals going on there, and it's just revving that whole time. And it does, Steve, like you were saying, it kind of goes up and down, and I feel like it finally just all just kind of explodes at the end. And I don't know, it felt right. That was all. We were just making decisions based on feelings at that time. We had never done this before. So to be honest,
how old were you guys when you did this album?
22, 23, okay. 22. 22 and 23. I think most of us were. Josh was a little bit younger, but everyone else was the same. And honestly, I feel like we probably thought hard about the first track and maybe about the last track, and everything in between just got kind of shoved in there with what felt right. It wasn't like, this is a single, we'll put it at this spot. Hey, this is a, Amtrak ballad, we'll put it at 5 spot. No, I don't think we had that much forethought into it, which kind of, I think that just adds to it. The theme of this album in my mind, as I look back, is like, we just did a lot of things just because we wanted to do it that way. We didn't submit to a lot of other people saying things or feeling things. We just kind of rolled with a lot of it and made the decisions based on what we thought was cool and going to work. And I think that I like that a lot. I'm looking back at it. It's very honest.
There wasn't a lot of label intrusion to the recording process at all.
Zero. There was zero on this one. We did the demos, and like I was saying, they're pretty much the same as you hear. I mean, they were just recorded a little bit poorly, the demos, and we just went in there and pretty much laid down the exact version that we had.
Cool. Awesome.
I mean, that shows that they're probably comfortable with what was given to them as demos, that, that the songs are ready. So
yeah, and I don't think at that time they probably had, they were doing really well. They probably had a lot of capital, and they probably thought, well, these guys have a fan base. We're not going to have to throw too much into it. There wasn't a lot of expense. It wasn't like we had this massive budget or anything. So it's probably pretty easy to just lay out. I wish I could. I feel like that'd be fun if someone knew like how much it cost to record this album. But honestly, it couldn't have been more than like $10,000, $15,000.
I mean, it's the whole thing. Not to be harsh to the other Rushmore acts, but this one sounds like sound quality is better to me than any of the other Rushmore albums. Like when I play it, if I played it next to like Day at the Fair, well, it's a great record and the songs are great. Like the recording quality isn't as high as your guys was, I don't think. But
yeah, I don't even remember how we landed with Ed Rose, but he is quite a renowned producer, engineer. Worked with Get Up Kids is one of his main claim to fame. He also did a Motion City soundtrack album, and I think he did the early one, I Am the Movie. I think that's what it's called. And he did a Spitalfield album.
Oh, nice.
And he did a bunch of others. I mean, he's worked with Piebald, all sorts of really cool bands that, a lot of that Midwestern stuff he worked with. And yeah, I guess we got lucky that he was available when we wanted to do it, and he wasn't too expensive, and we didn't spend more than 3 weeks, I think, on it. 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, that we were staying over there, and that was it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound dated to me at all. I mean, it still sounds pretty fresh too.
Yeah, he was really cool dude to work with, very easy to work with. He definitely challenged me, though. I had the toughest time, I think, kind of getting knocked down a little bit. Like, dude, you're going to have to go take a vocal lesson or something. I remember he sent me out one time. One of the songs we were doing, I think it was One More Won't Hurt. I did that recording, just like couldn't get it really great. And he sent me out to some vocal coach. I was like, go work with this person.
That's gotta hurt.
That's pretty deflating. Like, you go in there, you're like 23 years old, feeling on top of the world, and then you get knocked down.
Not only that, you're the lead singer of the band, so it's like, I don't know, am I letting these guys down? Like,
it felt pretty bad. It was tough to deal with, to be honest. It was coming out of it, though. I appreciate what he was doing, because most people might just say, hey, we'll lay it down. It's good. It's good enough. You're trying to push. Give me a little push. And he delivered it in a nice way. It was coming from a special, a meaningful place. And I don't have any hard feelings. He was always really great to us.
Well, I think I could speak for everybody here when we say, maybe that helped make the album even that much sweeter, because this is a fantastic, fantastic album. So I guess we'll take a page out of the High School Never Ends podcast, because when they do album reviews, they do a top 3 tracks list. Everybody goes through and picks their top 3 favorite tracks. So, Steve, you go first.
Oh, me.
Top
okay.
3 picks. What do you got?
This was actually pretty hard, I gotta say. I'll keep it to 3, but I kind of feel bad for a couple of tracks that I'm leaving off here. I really wanted Elephant Castle and Exit Emergency to be on here, but I went with number 3 is going to be One More Won't Hurt. Number 2 is Bonnie and Bob, and number 1 is Amtrak is for Lovers. I know that it. Wow. I like the ballad, dude.
Look at that.
I thought it was fantastic. It's hard for a ballad to be my number 1, but that one did it, man. I'm giving it to it. Had nothing to do with that
ballads,
commercial.
though. People love ballads. Chris, what do you got?
I got it, but Steve is not. There's other bands where Steve does not like ballads, and those bands will remain unnamed at this point in time.
Ooh.
But we'll talk about that off camera. My number 3 is clearly Elephant and Castle. Number 2, and this was a tough one. I flipped between 2 and 1, but 2 ended up being Bob and Bonnie, and then number 1 was High Rise. That song just clicked with me somehow, way, shape, or form, and it was my favorite on the album.
Johnny?
All right, my list changed several times over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Start at number 3.
My computer has to be I know. Jesus. Number 3 is Amtrak is for Lovers. Even though it's a slow ballad, we talked about it a lot. Always been one of my favorites. Sunrise Goodbye is number 2. Leads off the album. Great opening track. And number 1, Better Part of Valor. I like the crescendo at the end.
All right. And then my top 3 tracks, and then Tom, I hope you share yours after me. But my top 3 tracks are number 3, Elephant and Castle. Number 2, A Pen and a Piece of Mind. Just love it. And then number 1, Bob and Bonnie is my tops.
No way.
You guys couldn't have guessed.
Who would have guessed?
If it wasn't Bob and Bonnie, I was going to be like, you sold us a bill of goods.
Yeah.
Everybody just signs off simultaneously. You liar.
Yeah, Tyler, I was thinking that's hilarious that you guys are talking about that, because I thought if there's ever a day in my life in the future where I'm feeling down, I'm just going to pop on you talking about Bob and Bonnie, and it'll probably bring me right back up into a really positive spot. So thank you for that.
Well, hey, anytime, dude, seriously, every time I hear it, I'm like, this is such an amazing track. And I'll try to get my wife to listen to it. And, she's not into the same type of music I'm into. So no appreciation.
Same.
All right, Tom, what about you?
You want me to rank it? It's hard because if you're ranking your own songs,
rank your
own
babies.
band songs,
it's fine.
It's a lot.
Who's your favorite child?
Yeah, it's fine. We won't tell them.
Well, I would have to say my 3rd favorite song is A Bottle of Red, A Bottle of Spite. My 2nd favorite song is Elephant and Castle. And my 1st favorite song is High Rise. That is my number 1 favorite song on that album. It is so clean and just I don't know. And I've told you before, this is Rich's song from start to finish. I absolutely love, he's never written anything better than that. I've never heard anything come together like that. It's just so well thought out and perfect.
Well, it is such a solid song too. I mean, it's got punk vibes. It's got it all. And it's just fast and upbeat. And I can see why anybody would love this song. So,
would you change your
choice.
top 3 if the question was, what are your top 3 songs from this album to play live?
Yeah, I would. Because I wouldn't put Bottle of Red on there at all. I never really enjoyed playing that song live, to be honest.
Okay.
I think Steve just wants his number 1 to match yours and not mine. That's what he's trying to do there. So unfortunately,
Tom wasn't going to match my number 1.
Number 1 was Amtrak. I was already pretty clear about that one. We did. I told you it got a new life after we trimmed it down a little bit. I felt a lot differently about it.
I'm going to look up some of those older versions.
Yeah, there's an NJPP archives site where you'll find all of the old versions, because they don't exist on. I don't think you'll find them on YouTube. I don't think you'll find them. I know you won't find them on Spotify. But there was a guy named Joe Polito who did the Lord's work and put all of the old New Jersey pop punk scene music online from demo tapes. Just got it all cataloged on this NJPP archive. You'll find the ex-members of Midtown, all those old bands that their old groups are on there. And you'll find all of our old demos that are out there. It's really fun to listen to.
So to close this out, for those of you who may not have listened to part 1 or part 2 of this series, at the top of part 1, I said High School Never Ends podcast brought John and I onto their podcast to talk about Houston Calls' album End of an Era, their sophomore album. We went through track by track. At that time, Steve and Chris hadn't even listened to a collection of short stories. And John and I thought that was pretty interesting because we were going into that review of the album, had already listened to a collection of short stories, pretty much grew up with that album in our late teenage years. And so we were coming at that album with a different perspective. So I'm curious to know, Steve and Chris, since your first album for Houston Calls was End of an Era, and then you guys went back and listened to a collection of short stories for this episode. How would you guys compare a collection of short stories to an end of an era?
Go ahead, Steve. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're close, right? But I think that End of an Era is actually slightly a better album. I think I enjoyed it more. I think I've had more longevity with that one at this point in time, but it's not that different in terms of how many times I've listened to them. I think they each have a handful of songs that just get stuck in your brain and can't get them out. Not a bad thing, but I don't know. I don't think I can quantify it, but I think I'm going 1A, End of an Era, and 1B, collection of short stories. It's close, but you know the boys grew up a little bit, right? They learned how to sing. They listened to their producer. They learned how to play those banging instruments, and it's a little bit more polished. I don't know. I just felt like in End of an Era, it was a little different. Collection of Short Stories was a collection of short stories, very aptly named. And again, when I listened to End of an Era a bunch of times, I felt like these were songs that were like kind of written for me as like a little bit more of an older adult, even though they were younger when they came out. So I felt like there was just this elevated storytelling and construction of the songs, which I really appreciated. So it's a tight race, and I'm glad that I have them both, and I'm now an official super fan, and we've tried to will into existence, let's see, acoustic tracks, them playing new music, and them going back on a world tour. So I think I got a lot more to look forward to.
Mature was the word you were looking for, right? A little bit more mature.
Thank you.
Or mature, as some people like to say.
Sometimes we finish each other's sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys, I don't want to split hairs here. I think that there's a sound that Houston Calls has that I like no matter which way you slice it. I think that they just, to me, like this band, it clicked with me with End of an Era. It continued with a collection of short stories. So, but I think that, you know, it's to Steve's point, you know, it's two different types of albums. I think that a collection of short stories was a little bit lighter, I guess, a little bit more fun, a little bit younger, and then, you know, again, more mature on the other one. I just seem to click a little bit more with End of an Era, and to me, I can't let go. I love that album so much, but that does not mean I don't love this one. So to me, it's a win-win for a newer fan of the band, because for me, like, it just kind of reinforces the fact that I feel like, you know, anything that you guys have done is something that I would like and listen to. It's just that if I had to go back and say that there was one album that I liked the most, it was End of an Era, and that's it. So
John, I think there's something there's something to be said. We were, 18, 19 when we heard Collection of Short Stories, so we're hearing it in that context. and we're not hearing it, later on in our life. So I think it probably just resonates with us a little bit more because we were at that age.
Maybe.
It's like a summer record. Like it reminds you of, hanging out with your friends. It's warm out.
Also, too, I mean, that was like senior year of high school or just getting out of high school. So it's you're impressionable at that time. And those are arguably the best times of your life as a young adult. So, yeah, I think we just have a different perspective. Maybe that album hit just at the right time for us. So it's really interesting to hear, like, because I do wonder while they were saying that, that they like End of an Era better, I do wonder if it would change, even for us, if the roles were reversed and we heard End of an Era first as opposed to a collection of short stories. It is interesting.
If I could turn back time.
Yeah, is that? I think that's a song.
Sure, yeah.
All right, Tom, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing those little nuggets that you like to call them on these songs, on this album. This album for me it's tops up there in the Drive-Thru catalog. It's got to be easily, I don't have a definitive list, but I know it would be in my top 5 favorite albums of the Drive-Thru era, actually just of the scene era at that time. But anyways, I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts behind the tracks, while recording, the stories behind the songs, all that. I mean, now we have an album that has set with us for 19 years now, and now we can kind of see them in a different light when we're listening to the album. So thanks, man. I do appreciate it.
It's been thoroughly enjoyable for me, and the 4 of you have been very welcoming, and I want you to stay tuned for next time when I invite the 4 of you to my podcast, which doesn't exist, but I'll have to just make one just to have you 4 to invite you all, because you've invited
Houston
me back
Pods.
so many times. I mean, I got to think about what I could talk about that would be
Cast.
interesting, which is probably not much because you all.
How about just have a house party?
Job.
Have a house party and we'll bring some Keystones.
That's probably a better idea. I can pull that off a lot easier.
But John says they got to be keg.
I'll carry out some Elephant and Castle, and
we'll get everything.
And Bob
good.
and Bonnie got to be there, right?
It would be incredible, but seriously, like, you have been so welcoming, and it's been incredible to talk with you all and to hear your perspectives. And I really, really like hearing the differences in the albums and kind of the, how you think about that, because I go through periods where I can kind of, at this point, you can kind of look back and easily see, what was going on at that time. It was like, why isn't this better? Why didn't we think this was good? And now it's very clear. There's a clear line between the two in terms of just going in there and doing it as kids and being a little bit more thoughtful in it, and how that has kind of stood the test of time. And it's just neat to hear your all's perspective on that. And I just want to thank you for sharing it all, letting me be a part of this discussion, and also for the love that you gave Amtrak. That was really cool too, to hear that refreshed love. That was very special to me. So thanks, you all.
Well, I always try to make sure to tell the artists, thank you, especially the legacy artists, because you're a legacy artist now. Thanks for making the music in the first place, man, because it's always nice to be able to hear a song and go back to that time you first heard it. You know what I mean? So we all have them, and just thanks, man. You've left an imprint on a lot of people's lives because of it.
It's humbling to hear those things, that type of thing. It's really cool.
All right. I guess we can end it there. I'm going to go ahead and close it out the way that we close it out on the All Punked Up podcast. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're really digging our show, please consider helping us spread the word and leaving us a review in Apple Podcasts and or on Spotify. A 5-star review would be greatly appreciated. And please let us know what you'd like to hear about on this podcast. And so with that, thanks again. And remember, spread love, peace. And also, go follow the High School Never Ends podcast. Those guys are great. You've heard them for 3 episodes now. Go follow them wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Later, guys.
Thanks, guys.